In the darkness of the ancient world, a tribe of 6 faced an invisible threat. They believed they were being hunted by a deadly beast or demon. But the deeper their fear grew, the clearer it became. It was something far worse. In Upper Paleolithic Europe 45,000 years ago, a group of 6 people arrived on the shores of an unfamiliar land, searching for a better life. Leading them was DŁRKNESS, accompanied by his younger brother DŁRKNESS, his 11-year-old son Heron, his pregnant partner AV, the wise elder Odell, and a wandering girl named B. But after just a few days they realized this land held hardships they had never imagined. It felt cursed, no crops grew, no game roamed, and the relentless wind turned survival into torment. None of them had eaten in over a week, and the starvation began to take a toll on both their bodies and minds. For Av, the struggle was even harder. She had to care not only for herself but also for the unborn child she carried. Late one night, huddled around a dying fire, the small tribe tried to make a plan for the morning. Odom knew their only chance of survival was to head into the mountains, where they might find a sheltered cave to call home. Meanwhile, young Heron, missing his mother, asked someone to tell him a bedtime story. Ave, distant and exhausted, refused to take on the role of the boy's late mother, even when Odem gently asked her to. Instead, old Odell stepped in, offering to tell a story. It was a captivating tale, though tinged with sorrow, a retelling of their own story, like a legend. He told of 6 souls who had left behind dangerous lands in search of hope. After surviving storms and treacherous waters, they reached a strange new place. But the brutal truth of their surroundings had shattered their dreams. They didn't know what the future held, or even if they would live to see another day. Still, Odem pleaded with them to keep believing. As Odell ended the story, he warned half in jest that the worst always lurked in the dark. He had no idea how right he was. Something was watching them, circling nearby, hidden in the shadows. The next morning, the group got ready to move out. B was about to eat a weed lying on the beach shore, but Ga stopped her, warning that it was unsafe and could be poisonous. B realized that the leader's younger brother had feelings for her, and she felt the same. But hunger wasn't something feelings could fix. She knew that if they didn't find food soon, someone in their group would have to be killed. She wished it could be the old man, Odell, since he was useless, but suspected the others would be more likely to target her instead. Ga promised to protect her and do whatever it took to keep her alive. The group set out, eyes fixed on the distant mountains, their only hope for shelter. They aimed to reach them within 3 days, though that meant enduring the journey without food or water. After the first day, it became clear that Av couldn't go on. Exhausted and struggling, she needed to rest. The 2 women and the old man made camp on a hilltop, while Odem and Ga headed off to hunt. Spears in hand, the men followed tracks that led them behind a hill and into the valley of a rocky river. There, they spotted bloodstains and readied themselves for a fight, only to discover the massive skeleton of a mammoth. Ga saw hope in the find. If such prey lived there, they might yet survive. But Odem was less optimistic. He urged his brother to keep quiet about what they'd seen. To him, the real warning lay in the carcass. If something had taken down a mammoth, it was a predator powerful enough to wipe them all out. That night, the group gathered around a small fire. B was feeling worse. When she noticed she was bleeding, she panicked. It was her first time, and she didn't understand what was happening. Av reassured her. This meant she was now a woman capable of bearing children and continuing her lineage. Later that night, Odem kept watch, alert for predators, and worse. Strange noises echoed in the darkness. B, frightened, hid a sharp stone in her sleeve. It was her only hope if she needed to defend herself against the unknown presence lurking nearby. The next morning, the tribe climbed yet another hill, shrouded in dense fog. Suddenly, Odem grew tense. His son Heron had vanished. The boy snuck up behind him as a prank, but Odem didn't find it funny. He wasn't just anxious. He was certain something dangerous was watching them, waiting to strike the weak and unaware. As the group paused again so Av and Odell could rest, Odem and Gia went hunting once more. Ahead of them lay a deep, dark forest. Odem suggested they go around it. Walking through would be too risky. Ga hesitated. Taking the long way meant doubling their travel time, and not everyone might survive that. That night, Av's condition worsened. She was starving, and her pregnancy made it unbearable. With no food, Odell turned to ancient chants, ritual words meant to soothe the hunger and focus her will to survive. He drew on every piece of wisdom he had to calm the young woman. Instead of staying by Av's side, Odem wandered into the dark toward B. Ga, who had silently fallen in love with the wandering girl, watched in pain as his older brother approached her with primal intent. Ga resigned himself to the idea that Av and the unborn child might not survive. But for Odem, the only thing that mattered now was B. She was young, fertile, and in his eyes, she was the future. As Odem reached out to touch her, B suddenly saw something horrifying behind him. A creature, faceless and black, was watching them. The moment it screamed, high-pitched and unnatural, B recoiled in terror. She and Odem rushed back to the others. The tribe armed themselves with spears, stones, and whatever weapons they could find, forming a tight circle to defend against the unseen threat. The creature's cries pierced the night, and the fact that they couldn't see it only fueled their fear. Odell believed this wasn't just some predator or monster. It was a demon, drawn to B by the scent of her menstrual blood. Moving swiftly and silently through the darkness, the creature attacked the weakest among them and snatched Heron, vanishing into the shadows. His frantic father gave chase, but he had no idea where to run or what exactly he was pursuing. Ga stopped his older brother. He was the only one who could still lead and protect them. Without him, they were all as good as dead. There was no saving Heron until daylight. Reluctantly, DÄRKNESS agreed to wait until dawn. At first light, he set out after the monster. Soon, he found Heron's fur cloak, but there was no blood on it, which gave him hope. His son was still alive. Following a strange black trail left by the beast, the group of 5 reached the edge of the forest. DÄRKNESS had hoped to avoid the thick woods, but now he and his loved ones had no choice. They had to go in, hoping to track the monster and rescue Heron. As DÄRKNESS became increasingly obsessed with the mission, he ignored the exhaustion and weakness of the others. Pushing forward, they came upon a gruesome scene. Blood, bones, and the remains of both animals and humans. Surrounded by skulls, they suddenly heard the monster's piercing cry and realized it was close. Though it hunted well in daylight, it was even more dangerous at night. So they decided to build a fire. Bursting out into a clearing, B quickly lit one to protect the group. But the creature kept circling, closing in on their camp, terrifying the women and the old man. DÄRKNESS knew he couldn't afford to show fear. He listened carefully, located the beast by sound, and hurled his spear into the darkness. When a sharp screech cut through the air, he guessed he'd wounded it and charged in after it. But chasing a slow-moving target in the night, DÄRKNESS soon realized he was the prey now. In the pitch-black woods, it was the monster that hunted. He tried to back out, fear taking hold, but it was already too late. The creature ambushed him, and the others heard only his scream and desperate plea for help. B begged God to stay, but he couldn't abandon his brother. He ran toward the screams and disappeared into the dark. A few minutes later, Ga returned, carrying DÄRKNESS's broken body, and laid him by the fire. DÄRKNESS was alive, but barely. His injuries were grave, and it was clear he wouldn't make it. Realizing this, B made the hard decision to end his suffering. She killed the group's leader. Moments later, Av collapsed from a sudden fainting spell. It wasn't grief over the father of her unborn child, but hunger so severe it could kill her at any moment. With no food in sight, B offered a grim solution. They should cook DÄRKNESS. As horrifying as it was, she believed he would have wanted to save his family this way. The others agreed. B took part of DÄRKNESS's body and roasted the meat over the fire. This act helped them regain strength and rest, but Ga refused to eat his brother. Instead, he buried what remained. A little later, the 4 survivors gathered to decide what to do next. Ga wanted to hunt down the monster to avenge his nephew's abduction and his brother's death. B argued they needed to find shelter if they wanted to survive. Odell and Ave, however, were convinced the creature was a demon, that it demanded a sacrifice to leave them alone. They blamed B and her menstrual cycle for their misfortunes. The old mystic suggested offering the wanderer as a sacrifice, but Ga was firmly against it. Taking up his fallen brother's spear, he stepped into the role of leader and pushed the group forward. They tried to reach the mountains, struggling through a harsh and unforgiving path. All the while, it felt like the creature was near, watching them. Still, they pressed on. After an exhausting day's journey, they came across DÄRKNESS's corpse and realized with horror that they'd been walking in circles. Ga had failed them. He couldn't protect or lead them. Something had to change. Odell returned to his earlier idea. A sacrifice must be made to appease the demon. Av agreed, and the 2 of them seized the wanderer, dragging her toward the clearing where they'd once found blood and bones. Ga tried to stop them, but they shoved him aside. He hit his head on a rock and blacked out, helpless to defend the girl. The monster lurked nearby, watching it all unfold. Just as they prepared to offer the girl, B fought off Odell and helped the girl escape to a safe distance. Enraged, the old man turned his fury on Av. He stabbed the pregnant woman in the belly, planning to sacrifice her instead. In her final moments, Av grabbed Odell's leg. He stumbled, snapping his ankle, leaving him completely immobile. That night, under the eerie glow of the northern lights, Odell watched as the creature dragged Av's lifeless body away. At dawn, B found Ga and urged him to stay quiet. The monster was still nearby. Hiding together, they witnessed a chilling scene. The monster watched Odell bleed out, waiting patiently for his final breath. B and Ga took their chance. Attacking from both sides, B jumped the creature from behind and knocked off its mask, a skull coated in black slime. For the first time, they saw the face behind the terror. What they had believed to be a demon was something else entirely. Underneath the skull was the face of a woman, feral, primal, and human. A Neanderthal, scarred and fierce, who had cloaked herself in darkness and bone. Startled by their spears and shouts, the woman retreated into the forest. Ga and B gave chase and eventually discovered that she had been hiding in a cave atop the tallest mountain. Ga was shaken. All this time, their terrifying predator had been human, or close to it. But B didn't waver. To her, this woman was a ruthless killer, one who lived without mercy or morality. She had slaughtered their loved ones, and for that, she deserved to die. Together, Ga and B set off after the Neanderthal woman, determined to end her and take the cave for themselves, claiming it as their new home in this hostile land. After climbing to the top of the mountain, the pair suddenly saw 2 entrances to the cave, and they had no idea which one the Neanderthal woman was hiding in. They decided to split up and enter separate caves, hoping to catch their enemy off guard and kill her. Moving through the pitch darkness, B was terrified to take another step, but fear itself kept her going. It was fear she hoped to conquer by pushing forward. As she squeezed through narrow, shadowy tunnels, she had no idea a local creature was silently trailing behind her. She suddenly turned, sensing something, but saw nothing in the complete darkness. At the moment she let her guard down, the creature attacked. It turned out to be a Neanderthal man, possibly the mate of the female hunter. The wild man slammed into B, knocking her to the ground. He straddled her and began to strangle her. Her efforts to fight him off were useless, so she went limp, pretending to be dead. The second his grip loosened, she grabbed a sharp object and stabbed him in the neck. As the creature bled out, she grabbed the spear that once belonged to ODM and thrust it into the man's back, finishing him off. B pressed on and soon discovered a rock formation that resembled a separate room. There was a fire burning, and in the distance, a few animal skins were moving. Something was underneath them. Expecting another attack, she prepared to strike, but it turned out to be Heron, still alive. Meanwhile, Ga stumbled upon the wounded Neanderthal man and brutally finished him off. Just as things seemed to have calmed down, the Neanderthal woman entered the same space where B and Heron were. Holding a stone axe, she charged at the girl. B defended herself with a burning stick, trying to hold her off. When Ga entered moments later, he froze in shock. He had never expected Heron to still be alive. But before he could act, the Neanderthal woman, unwilling to harm a child and another girl, turned her rage on Ga. She struck him in the head and savagely killed him. B realized they were next. They had to escape. She lit a fur mat on fire, quickly filling the cave with thick smoke. Breathing became impossible. Anyone who stayed inside would die. Thinking fast, she found a vertical opening leading outside. She helped Heron climb up first and scrambled out behind him. The Neanderthal woman also tried to escape, but got stuck at the top of the passage. She begged for help. Heron reached out to pull her up, but B attacked, slamming a rock into the woman's head and killing her. Heron was devastated. To him, the Neanderthals weren't monsters. They were people, not so different from them. They hadn't kidnapped him. They had taken him in to care for him. They gave him shelter, warmth, and food. But no one ever saw that. Everyone just treated them like enemies. B didn't agree. In her eyes, they were still monsters, ones that had killed most of their group. A little later, B and Heron returned to the cave, where they found AV's body prepared for burial. Only then did B begin to regret killing the Neanderthals, realizing they were just people, scared and uncertain, just like their own group. Having come to this understanding, B and Heron buried the Neanderthals along with their fallen companions. The cave became their home, not just a shelter but a symbol. They were the first of a new kind of people. B knew many mistakes had been made, but now, they had a chance to start fresh, carrying the lessons learned from everything they had been through. When pushed to the limit, the heroes began to lose their humanity. But what was true barbarism? Was it simply ignorance, or was it the decision to abandon morals in the name of survival? Was morality something only the well-fed and safe could afford? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. Smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Catch you in the next video.